say rumors die in silence, but not in the Bryon Macron case in Medina County. They live forever. From day one, investigators couldn't explain the evidence in front of them, the DNA, the struggle they heard on Bungalow Bay, the gaps in the record. So instead of answers, they leaned on a story about money problems, a story about jewelry, a story that, when you dig into it, doesn't just fall apart. It exposes exactly how far law enforcement was willing to go to shift the blame onto a dead man. This is the jewelry myth. So, one of the things, Tentacle Nation, that I am acclimating into is time. Having a weekly episode every Wednesday sometimes interferes with me actually investigating, which is the whole premise of the show, investigative reporting. So I was actually going to take today's episode in another direction, but something positive came up behind the scenes. And sometimes that means I need a little extra time to actually investigate. I don't just sit down and crank these things out. I follow the evidence, the contradictions, and the voices of people who've been ignored, and that takes time. So tonight I'm pulling out some of my older notes I've kept as a backup. Notes on what I call the jewelry myth. And I'll be honest with you, I may not do this full justice in one sitting. This may be one of those topics we circle back to in a longer segment, because the deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. So you'll notice a couple of new things. One, my Rode mic broke. I had to send it back. There's something wrong with the USB connection. So I'm stuck using my AirPods as a mic, and you're going to hear a difference because I've already heard the quality difference. My Rode mic is actually awesome, really clear and distinct, cuts out a lot of the background noises where these AirPods don't. But you're going to have to live with me, Tentacle Nation, until Rode gets back to me. You'll also notice my new sign here, and I had to remove and take down my Walking Dead. This is the cast. I don't know if anybody actually has ever paid attention. This is the original cast from The Walking Dead, and I went out to Georgia, I think it is. Yeah, back when the show was really heated and on, and I was able to get signatures of each of the cast members. This is pretty awesome to me. I have to put this now in between my Beatles and photo of Jose, but I guess that's actually out of the frame now. Signed picture of Jose when they were still the Indians. So, anyways, this is new. I like it. It's sort of cool to add to the style, the vibes. So, bring bringing us back, we're going to actually cut right now to housekeeping. And you're going to become very familiar with this because I recorded this so that I could just stick it in because I was putting a lot of time every episode into the housekeeping section. So I wanted to make a recording of it. So you're going to become very familiar with this housekeeping role. Cut. Listen up, Tentacle Nation. If you want to keep this roll call tight, head over to www.theinfamousexchief.com. That's Command Central. From there, you can slide into Patreon. It's a monthly subscription with exclusive drops at least once a month, or lurk for free just to jump in on the polls and pretend you had a say. Discord. That's where the real chatter goes down. Think of it like the squad room. The coffee's cold, the jokes are bad, but everyone's running their mouth. And the best part, you don't need some shiny Facebook profile. You can show up as Detective Donut or Sergeant Snark or Detective Deborah Switch if you want. Nobody cares. Just get in and start talking. Hit the links for YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Apple Podcasts. That's standard issue stuff right there. Old school? Not a problem. Email me. Feeling paranoid? Use Signal. Signal it over. Encrypted tighter than a rookie's first report. Want your voice on the record? Speak pipe. Leave me a voicemail. If it doesn't sound like you're 3 sheets to the wind, I might even use it. Got a tip on a case? Fill out the tip sheet. Be as quiet or loud as you want. Do I burn sources? Ask him. Oh, wait, you can't. Want me to cover a case? Drop it under case consideration. Or keep it simple. Buy me a coffee and grab me a Brew Loud Be Heard mug. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a shift briefing. Be loud, be heard, shake the system until the truth falls out. So, from the very beginning, Medina County officials leaned on a story that Bryon Macron's death might be tied to money problems. And the centerpiece of that story was jewelry. So, if you flip through the case files, you see it everywhere. Deputies and BCI agents asking about Bryon selling jewelry on the side, asking about customers he blew off, whispering about financial stress from transactions. It was treated almost like motive. But when you drill down, when you look for actual evidence, the foundation crumbles. And yes, investigators found a jewelry receipt in Bryon's SUV. Yes, subpoenas later went out to businesses tied to his past work in jewelry sales like AB Diamonds and the Monel Designs. And I'm hoping I'm like horrible with names. I'm hoping that that's correct. But what came of it? Nothing. No reports of interviews with buyers, no financial tracing, no analysis of accounts. The trail just goes cold. What we're left with is a rumor elevated to lead status. Gossip turned into investigative theory. So let's think about how a real financial investigation works. You get a receipt, you trace it back, you subpoena the bank records. You interview the seller or the buyer. You follow the money until it either confirms or eliminates a lead. But in this case, investigators wrote it down and moved on. They didn't trace it, they didn't test it, they didn't close the loop. And that gap is important because while Medina County was chasing gossip about jewelry, other leads, real evidence, were left to rot. Think about it. The unknown DNA found inside the administration builder never matched anyone in the elimination pool. The neighbors on Bungalow Bay who reported hearing what sounded like a struggle around 4 a.m., no follow up. The soil sample behind the oaks that tested presumptively positive for blood was never analyzed further. The school bus cameras that rolled past the very scenes where we've been talking about, footage lost to overwriting. There's also a 48 minutes of missing radio traffic from deputies on the morning Bryon disappeared. Never explained. They could have been sleeping for 48 minutes. I don't know. We haven't gotten into it yet. And that's where the investigative energy should have gone. But instead, we got a jewelry myth. And here's the kicker. That myth served a purpose. It let officials float the idea that maybe Bryon's problems were personal. Maybe he was stressed about money. Maybe he had a side hustle gone bad. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't homicide at all. Do you see how convenient that is? Let's focus on the jewelry, and you don't have to answer for DNA. You don't have to explain the struggles witnesses heard. You don't have to chase the leads that point out the foul play. Jewelry becomes the smokescreen. Now, I'll be straight with you. These are notes I've been building on the jewelry angle. I'm not convinced I've even scratched the surface. There are still questions about who was interviewed, what records were subpoenaed, and whether anything meaningful has ever been done with those subpoenas. And that's why I call this the jewelry myth. It's a narrative propped up without evidence, repeated until it sounds like fact, but never tested in a real investigative sense. And we may have to circle back to this one in a longer dedicated segment because I want to do it justice. So, as always, thank you for sticking with me, Tentacle Nation. Thank you for giving me the room not only cover the case, but also to actually investigate it. That takes time, that takes persistence, and sometimes it takes saying, tonight we're going to tackle one of the myths instead of pretending we have the whole truth neatly wrapped up, because that's not how the case works. And here's where the jewelry narrative really starts to fall apart. one of the biggest rumors floating around was that Bryon Macron had been selling knockoff jewelry, passing off cheap stones, and ripping people off. That claim came out during a 2019 BCI interview with former Medina County Sergeant James Sanford. And obviously, it had been floating around by Sanford, I'm sure, before 2019, but that's where we actually figure out where it came from. Sanford told agents that Montville officer Chris LaFon had bought a $5,000 engagement ring from Macron, only later to find out it was worth just $875. Sanford painted a picture of Bryon scamming friends, even insuring them through UPS as loss to cash in. And we have covered all of these before, but here it is for your convenience. Cut one.
Of course, right after, I accepted this job, and then all this happens. Eric Boers, the other sergeant, is friends with one of the sergeants from Montville, who just got married. And a lot of the guys would go to Bryon for jewelry because he said the markup on jewelry is, you go to the jewelry store, you look at the price. What he goes, divide that by 3. That's what you can get it for. So a lot of the guys would go to him because he would sell it to them for cost. LaFon had bought I think it was like a $5,000 diamond ring, engagement ring. They'd wanted to.
You mean you paid $5,000 for it?
Yeah. So it'd be like a $15,000 ring. She wanted the matching band to go with it. Now this is again after all this stuff had started. I'm hearing this that he had, ordered the band and it came in and wasn't the right one. So he sent it back. Ordered, they sent the next one. It was the wrong one. And then he's telling LaFon, look, I'll give you the money back for it. But from what I was told he was doing was he would then claim that it was lost or stolen. And he insured everything through UPS or wherever, so then he'd get reimbursed for it. Finally, she wound up going down to Columbus and buying what she wanted on her own. And I said, you know what? I said, I hate to say this, but you might want to tell LaFon to go get that ring appraised. And, that was another thing. That's what made me think of this, because they wanted the appraisal. And he kept putting them off about the appraisal. And then he stopped answering his phone calls. There's a school right there, 162 and Route 3, and I guess Montville at the time, when that intersection opened up, school hours, they'd be out there directing traffic. And LaFon had mentioned that Bryon was turning, and he was like, trying to, and Bryon completely ignored him. Well, from what I understand, he did go get it appraised, and it was appraised for like $870.
Oh, wow. What's his name?
LaFon.
Sounds damning, right? But here's the truth. When LaFon himself sat down with investigators, the story didn't match Sanford's version at all. LaFon explained that he paid Bryon about $5,350 for an engagement ring in 2015. Later, after frustration over resizing and communication, he had it appraised. The appraisal came back at $6,740, more than he had paid, and the diamond matched the official GIA certification Bryon had gave him. The only discrepancy was the band being 14 karat gold instead of 18 karat gold, and that's it. And if you listen again, Bryon made it right. It was not a typical order for Bryon, and he admittedly said that he screwed up the band. That's it. Not fake, not a scam. So how do we get from a $6,740 appraisal with certified paperwork to a rumor about knockoffs and a value of $875? That's what happens when gossip becomes evidence. Cut 2.
GIA paperwork.
Right, the assay on the diamond.
Exactly, that said it was all certified and everything like that, and it was engraved on the back of the diamond with the serial number or whatever number they put on the back. So now I'm quite nervous that this is this real? Now am I looking at, did I spend $5,000 on a ring is it even legit? So we take it to a place called Jewelry Art in Hudson in January of 17. So a little bit after the first of the year there. And we basically take that ring as with the band as adjusted as it is and everything like that, and say, just give us an appraisal. I had the diamond paperwork. the GIA sheet, or if that's what it's called or whatever, and took it into them and said, this is what I know, just want an appraisal on this. They came back at an appraisal of $6,740.
And mind you, this wasn't some random neighbor whispering over the fence. This was a former sergeant, someone directly connected to the investigation, pushing a false narrative. This is unbelievable. Instead of clearing the air with the facts that are right in front of them, law enforcement let a rumor snowball and linger in the files like it was gospel. Even worse, that narrative has been allowed to fester. I still hear it today, repeated like it's fact. Like, think about it. A man's reputation was smeared, his family forced to live with whispers, all because investigators acted more like a middle school rumor mill than a professional law enforcement agency. Even former Captain David Setner, my favorite, you guys all know, besides Detective Dimmerswitch, repeated jewelry rumors in his 2019 BCI interview, saying he's heard lots of stories about Bryon's sales. But when pressed, he admitted he had no firsthand knowledge. So what's real? The documents in the appraisal prove that Bryon was not pushing fake stones or worthless rings. He sold a legitimate diamond certified under its appraised value. The knockoff narrative was nothing more than gossip, and investigators themselves were the ones giving it oxygen. And now imagine this: your dead husband, your dead wife, your dead brother, your dead sister. Imagine people running rampant with this rumor, only to find out it was started by the very people charged with investigating. Can you possibly fathom them actually investigating this case properly? And that's the truth about the jewelry story. It wasn't a lead, it wasn't evidence, and it sure as heck wasn't fact. It was gossip, repeated until it sounded believable, and then written into the record by the very people who were supposed to be investigating. And now picture your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister gone, and instead of accountability, instead of justice, the people sworn to protect the truth smear their memory with rumors. Rumors that they started. Rumors that they let fester. Rumors that live on even today. Can you possibly imagine those same people ever investigating your case properly? Be loud, be heard, shake the system until the truth falls out.